And statements expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of WWDB, its staff, or management.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB. And now, your host, Philadelphia Councilman David O.
Good afternoon. This is David O, and welcome to the show. You're in the know with David O. That's me. Thank you for joining us. Today, we have some wonderful guests for you. Of course, Governor Ed Rendell. We're going to hear from him, a very substantive conversation with him. And then we'll be talking to Aleta Anderson, who is the executive producer of the Miss Black America pageant, this now in its 49th year. And we also have one of the contestants with us, Summer Jordan. She's back from the UK where she recorded a single. And she'll tell us a little bit about herself. And the reason why that's interesting is this is her first pageant ever. Okay, but first let me thank Weinerman Pain and Wellness, all the great work that they do, helping those who have been injured get back to a full life and to, with that, get their mind in tune with their bodies. Weinerman Pain and Wellness do a wonderful job, and of course, I thank them for sponsoring this show. If you remember, last week we listened to Dr. Krisha Coppage, the founder and executive director of ASEER, that stands for And Still I Rise, serving children in North Philadelphia. So many of these great grassroots organizations like ASEER are really run out of the goodness of the hearts of those who find them. They also fund them. And so we heard about her work and her upcoming events that she's having. And then we heard from E. Daniels, very popular gospel music artist, also a preacher. And for us, he is a judge in the PHL Live Center Stage Gospel Music category. And then we heard from Mark Wong, who is one of the founders of Hip Hop Fundamentals. And they teach young people, or people my age, a little older, how to dance. But they incorporate education, history, civil rights into their entire program. Well, let me say that, I came in and if you were listening earlier, you were listening to a rebroadcast of Bob Rovner Talks to the Stars, and the guest was Governor Ed Rendell. And here he is again. And so you're getting a double dose of Ed Rendell. The 45th governor of Pennsylvania. He served as governor in our state from 2003 to 2011. He was also mayor of Philadelphia from 1992 to 2000. And prior to that, he was our city's district attorney. He's graduated from University of Pennsylvania and Villanova Law School. He also served as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army from 68 to 74. And he did publish a book that you may be familiar with. If not, check it out. It's a book entitled A Nation of Wusses, How America's Leaders Lost the Guts to Make Us Great. And so, without further ado, let me welcome Governor Ed Rendell.
Thanks, David. It's an honor to be here. As your listeners know, David's a Republican and I'm a Democrat, but I had the pleasure of supporting him both times he ran for city council at large, because under our laws and the city charter, 2 of the 7 councilmen at large have to come from the minority party. So I had the opportunity to pick among the Republicans running, and David brought, I thought, would bring youth and vitality and a new perspective to council, and he certainly has.
Well, thank you very much for that, Governor. I mean, it was my honor to be hired by you. In fact, my first job out of law school was to work in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. And back in those days, back in 1985, it was not uncommon for people to say, well, an Asian American won't do well in the courtroom. And so, I was one of the first Asian Americans, among the first, to be hired in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office by then DA Ed Rendell. And, one of the hallmarks, I think, of what you have done for our city and for our state as an executive has been to take a very pragmatic, visionary approach. Certainly, there's been controversy because that's what happens when you're a leader. But you have worked very pragmatically and practical with whoever you needed to work with.
Well, I think that's important. You can have all the best plans in the world, and you can give a great speech about why these plans will be good for the people you represent. But if you can't get them put into action, if you can't get them implemented, you're really not doing anything of value. So learning how to work with the other side is very important. And it's relatively simple. People say, how can you say that? No one's working together in Washington and Harrisburg. But it's relatively simple. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're talking to, negotiating with, etc., and say to yourself, what do they need to conclude this deal, to give me what I want? What do they need? And once you determine what they need, find some way to give them all or part of what they need.
In 2012, you published your first book, A Nation of Wusses, How America's Leaders Lost the Guts to Make Us Great. What did you really mean by that? What was the point of your book based on your experiences and what you just said, the need to work together to get things done for the public?
Well, to me, what I've seen in government at all levels, local, state, and national, and you remember I was chairman of the Democratic Party in 2000, so I've seen it at all levels. In addition to the polarization that comes from different ideologies, the reason we're not getting things done is people seem to be petrified of losing their office. Their votes are usually cast by who yells the loudest, sticking a finger to the wind and saying, what does the prevailing mood, instead of voting for what they know in the long run will help their constituency the most. Sometimes that takes a lot of courage and guts. Look, the NRA is a strong lobbying organization. And if they target a congressman or a state legislator, it can be real trouble. But on the other hand, how can you see what happened in Connecticut with the kids being killed in school and not vote for reasonable controls over the number of bullets that can be lawfully stored in a magazine, on the type of weapons that we distribute, on closing loopholes so that people can't get guns who aren't qualified to get guns? How can you in good conscience not cast a vote? So I have reluctantly come to the conclusion, and I say reluctantly because I was always against it, that the only way we're going to get government that does the right thing is to place legislative term limits on people at every level. Because if you have an 8-year term limit and you're in year 6, and you've got one election coming up if you want to serve for the 7th and 8th year, what's the big difference if you lose that election and you serve only 6 years as opposed to 8? I had, when I was in Harrisburg, people who would come up to me in my own party and say, Governor, I know you're right about education funding, but I can't vote for your tax increase because I'm a year away from my pension. A year away from your pension? That shouldn't be how we decide things in America, in Pennsylvania, and in Philadelphia. So we've got, not everyone, we've got a lot of gutless politicians out there, and that results in things being done that aren't visionary, that aren't difficult. No one does big things anymore. We were a country who built itself by doing big and challenging things that were difficult. My favorite quote in politics is from JFK, but not what you might expect. He had some incredibly moving and poignant quotes. My favorite quote was when he said we were going to put a man on the moon after the Russians shocked the world by putting Sputnik up before we did. He said, we're going to put a man on the moon, and we do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. Things that are worth doing, that make fundamental changes in the way people live their lives, are always hard to do. There's always a risk factor involved. And right now we are, in most cases, with some notable exceptions, we are a nation of wusses. Our lawmakers don't reflect what's best for all of us. There's no long-run vision, and they underestimate us. I did a lot of controversial things when I was DA, including arresting the police that beat up Delbert Africa after he had just shot and killed a policeman. It was wildly unpopular. And people said, oh, you're never going to get reelected now. I got reelected 15 months later with 81% of the vote. Because people, even if they disagree with you, will respect the courage and the fact that they know you're doing what you believe in.
Yeah, I really think that is very true because people have said so many times about different elected officials, I disagree with this, but, the one thing I got to say is this person is very clear. They're honest. They believe in what they're doing. And that's why I vote for them. And I think that is something that may be reflected not only in your book, but in the course that you teach at University of Penn. And so for those who don't know, especially if you're attending the University of Penn, if you want to take a class with Governor Rendell, you can. He has a class that he teaches, and it's called The Science of Politics, Who Gets Elected and Why. And what is that course about? And by the way, I will be a guest at one of your classes, but what do you focus on that class?
Well, what my long-term goal in teaching was to try to inspire young people to either get involved in public service directly, and that doesn't mean just running for office. It can mean being director of a planning commission or something like that. But also, if they're not going to get involved in public service directly, be good citizens. Vote in every election. If every eligible Philadelphian voted in every election, we would get so much more in terms of the resources we need from Harrisburg and Washington. But in President Obama's 2008 election, arguably the most exciting election in my lifetime, the official turnout in Philadelphia was 72%. People said that was great. But if you took all of the eligible adults who didn't register, less than 1 out of 2 people in Philadelphia who had the right to vote in that fall election cast a vote.
Yeah, that is certainly, one of the challenges as a chairman of a major party like the Democratic National Committee, as a governor involved with the governor's organizations, and as a mayor with other mayors, to ultimately motivate the people, to give them perspectives. And how do you cut through all the chatter that's out there, especially now with social media, to get to, here's what's fact, here's what's true, and this is best practices, this is why we have to do it?
It's hard these days to tell people what is the true fact. In the old days, if people saw it on CBS, ABC, or NBC National News, they assumed it was true. In most cases, it was. This idea that there's fake news out there, there may be some, but in most cases, the media does, and I've been ticked off at the media during my time in public life as well, but in most cases, they do a decent job, and they report things accurately. And we've got to cut through by keep pounding on those themes. We've got to cut through and say when President Trump, for example, says something that's patently wrong, like he said we should get tougher on Muslims, and he quoted an incident where supposedly General Pershing in the Philippines executed summarily 49 Muslims and then told the 50th to go back to his Muslim citizens and tell them what happened, and that was responsible for 35 years of no Islamic terrorism. Well, that story never happened. It never happened. General Pershing would have been court-martialed and probably sentenced to life imprisonment. You can't shoot someone summarily. And General Pershing was a good man. That never happened. And it's important that we keep hammering that and showing that things never happened. And it's important that people know that there's lack of consistency or consistency in our politicians. With President Trump, if I were the DNC chairman now, the Democratic Party chairman,
yes,
I would put an ad on every week. Here's what President Trump said about Afghanistan when he was a candidate. We should get out immediately. There's no sense in risking another American life. Here's what he said yesterday as president. Totally different. A troop buildup. He said that was idiocy when he was running. Which is it? So it's hard. The point you make is a good one. It's hard to get through. But one of the ways, and I'm dedicated to doing this, one of the ways we're going to change and get citizens more motivated is to run younger people. The millennials are the lowest turnout of any age demographic we have. The best voting citizens are citizens over 65 years of age. The worst are people from 18 to 35. But one of the ways you combat that is start electing young people, start nominating and electing young people. It's why I thought Alan Buckovich didn't do anything wrong as controller. I didn't think he was particularly good, but he wasn't bad. He wasn't corrupt. He's a decent man. But we had this young woman, Rebecca Reinhardt, running for office.
Yes.
And I thought that she would be exciting and a new voice and somebody that millennials could look to. So I put a lot of energy and a lot of money behind Rebecca's campaign, and she won. And you can see, if you just walk down the street with her, you can see how young people more than anybody else recognize her and are energized by the fact that she's in such an important office.
You know, it raises a very interesting point for me, what you just said, and that is that in order to move the nation forward or the community forward, the voters in our democracy have to be engaged, have to be excited, have to feel that they're represented. And yeah, I thought Alan Buckovich ran a great campaign. He did everything he should. But there was just this desire for a change, and she was the person, and I'm not trying to take credit away from her, but what happens is if younger people, being those people that typically don't vote but have so much at stake, can rally around her, can we move the ball forward? Can we bring about reform and changes, and can we improve our community?
There's no question that we can. I mean, remember, I'm looking around the room, and no one in here, the interns, the two next guests, no one here is old enough to remember the Vietnam War. But in Vietnam, the war was ended because young people, college students, went out, dressed up in ties and jackets and nice outfits if they were women, knocked on doors at the New Hampshire primary, and convinced older people that the youth of the nation didn't want that war to go on, that it was an unfair war, that it wasn't accomplishing anything. And an incumbent president who had been reelected 3 years before with 60% of the national vote, they drove that incumbent president from office, President Johnson. Mm. Young people, if they're motivated, can be the difference. They were the difference in, as you said, David, they were the difference in electing Mr. Krasner and Ms. Reinhardt to DA and controller. There's no question in my mind. So, and it's up to them, and that's the way it should be, by the way. Because take global warming. In the rest of my lifetime, global warming is going to make it a little more uncomfortable, a little hotter days, some more hurricanes, maybe a few tornadoes more than we have, some bad snowstorms, because all of these weather events are triggered by global warming. But I'm looking at our Miss Black America contestant, and in her lifetime, well, if we don't do something about global warming, her grandchildren may not be able to go out in the sun for more than 5-10 minutes. So young people, have, in every issue you can think of, they have the most at stake. So they should be the most active citizens.
Governor, I'm going to believe that right now there are listeners who are saying, yes, that's what we need, Governor Rendell, and there are listeners saying, oh, my God, I can't believe he's saying that, as a reflection of just how polarized today's political world at least appears to be. When I think about America, I just think like we're more and more and more polarized. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about with all of this is, in your time in elected office, you've seen it as DA, you've seen it as mayor, you've seen it as governor, you've seen it as DNC chair, and now in your work currently, where do you think we are as a city? Where is Philadelphia? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What would you love to see us do? What's our challenges?
Well, it's a good news, bad news story. Mm. The majority of the news for Philadelphia is good. I mean, what's happened to the city in the last 25 years, and it started when I became mayor, not just because of me, but because of a lot of good women and men who work with me, a lot of the business community and the civic groups that stepped up when the city's future was on the line. But that momentum has increased dramatically. I'll give you one statistic. In 1992, we had less than 55,000 people living in what was called Center City. Today, we have over 160,000 people living in Center City, mostly millennials, some empty nesters who moved out to the suburbs to get their kids in schools, and then when their kids went off to college, moved back in. And we are the second largest downtown population of any city in America. We just passed Chicago. We're only behind Manhattan for the downtown population. Now, what does downtown population do? It creates energy. It creates buying power, spending power. It is why one new restaurant after another keeps going. Passyunk Avenue now has more good restaurants than downtown Philadelphia had in 1992. It's unbelievable. You go up to Northern Liberties and the restaurant boom there, Kensington, Fishtown. It's unbelievable what's going on in downtown Philadelphia, and that's great. We're building hotels, restaurants, and jobs in the hospitality sector. People have a tendency to poo-poo those jobs, but a job in a hotel or a restaurant, by and large, and this is an average, will pay $35,000 a year with benefits. Now, that doesn't make you rich, and it doesn't make you even well off. But if you're a couple that lives together, married, if you both earn $35,000 with benefits, you're okay. You'll be able to buy your kids something. You'll be able to save a little bit of money for college. You're okay. And plus, it gives people the dignity of working. I've seen people from North Philadelphia, first job, working, they do dishes at Barclay Prime. And I've seen them say to their relatives, I work for Barclay Prime, the best restaurant in the city of Philadelphia. The pride of work is unbelievable. So there's good news. Every magazine ranks Philadelphia. The New York Times said there were 3 American cities that you had to visit in the top 50 cities in the world. Philadelphia was one of the 3, and we were the highest rated of the American cities. Condé Nast says we're the best restaurant city in America, best arts and cultural city. All these plaudits. But there are 2 real big red warning signs on the horizon. One, there is too much crime, too much homelessness. The crime and homelessness that exists risks losing Center City as a magnet. There's a Wawa right across from where I work. I work in the office at the Bellevue, and the old Bellevue, which is now an office building. Wawa, it's a beautiful superstore. When it opened, it did gangbuster business. But there's an encampment of about 7 or 8 homeless people who don't just sit there. They panhandle, and it's pretty aggressive. And it's going to kill the golden goose, and that's happening all over the city. So crime and homelessness hurt, and there are remedies for them that we have to pursue, and I think the mayor understands that. And then the second thing is, with all the good news that I just stated about Philadelphia, Philadelphia is considered the hottest city in America now. We lead the top 10 biggest cities in the percentage of our people that are at or below the poverty level. 27% of Philadelphians live below the poverty level. That no city can be a great city or a hot city unless we do something about that. And I know the mayor's aware of it. I know city council's aware of it. I think we need to spend more time and more resources on economic development and growth. And I also think we need to be conscious of the little things that cause businesses to get irritated and the little things that cause businesses to like where they are. And, of course, all of the arts and culture and all of the great restaurants, that helps attract businesses. But, on the other hand, there are some things that we do and some things that we haven't solved that drive businesses away. We need to create job opportunities.
Yes.
It's why Governor Wolf, the money he gave for the Port of Philadelphia was so important. The Port of Philadelphia, now that we've done the dredging, and you know that was a real battle.
Yes.
The Port of Philadelphia can produce, in the near future, in the next 5 years, 20,000 new jobs for longshoremen and truck drivers. Now, what's good about those jobs is the average longshoreman can make $80,000, $90,000 a year. The average truck driver can make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, depending on overtime. These are blue-collar jobs, by and large, not held by college graduates or people who attended any college, and yet they pay a living wage, a wage that you can build things for your family around. It's so important to get those jobs, and Governor Wolf should be commended for his efforts in that regard. But the state and the city, we need to focus our attention on creating more of those jobs. Infrastructure, David mentioned, it's one of my big issues. I've served for 9 years now as head of Building America's Future with Mayor Bloomberg of New York and Ray LaHood, the former Secretary of Transportation. We need to do an infrastructure overhaul in this country, and the best thing about it is if I told you we had the money right now, David, to fix every bridge and every street in the city of Philadelphia, do you know how many people we would put to work? Oh. We would put 15,000, 20, 25, 30,000 people to work. And again, good paying jobs, not minimum wage jobs, good paying jobs. So we've got to, at every level of government, we've got to focus like a laser on giving people job opportunities. And that also means job training. And that means our high schools have to do a better job. It means our community colleges have to do a better job. One of the things I did as governor, we spent $220 million over 3 years putting computers, laptop computers, in every classroom in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. The kids couldn't take them home. They were in the classroom. The teachers had smart boards. And the real purpose, not only did it motivate the kids in class, they had fun in class, but also no Pennsylvanian graduated without basic, solid, good computer skills. And think about it. We import people on what's called B-1 visas from the Middle East, from the Far East, Pakistanis, Koreans, people from all of these different countries to do computer software programming, $55,000, $65,000 a year jobs with benefits. How many people are there in Philadelphia who are in their 20s would love to have a $55,000, $60,000 a year job with benefits? And the reason they don't have it is not because they're lazy. It's because we didn't do a good job training them how to get by in the modern world.
Yes, very true. I couldn't agree more. Let me do this. We're going to have to take a commercial break right now, but when we get back, I do want to conclude this discussion with Governor Rendell on the issue of leadership, because when we talk about, Philadelphia, and people may not remember this, but there was a time where Center City was shut down at 6 o'clock. There was trash, graffiti, the smell of urine. And Governor Rendell, as mayor, came up with Make It a Night on Wednesday. I don't know if people today really understand what that did. And then moving the cultural centers to what later became Avenue of the Arts. But in order to do that in this blue-collar town with people wanting factories to come back, the mayor had to exercise a level of leadership of unifying people, and we've been talking about polarization, and yet without compromising your values, still speaking your mind, having people say, Mayor, I disagree with you 100%, but still get behind a vision of Philadelphia, a vision for Pennsylvania, a vision for America. And so when we get back, that question goes to Governor Rendell, so stay tuned.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB.
Here at Sonny's Famous Cheesesteaks, we have the utmost respect for the founding fathers of our fair city's most celebrated sandwich. But we also understand the inevitability of time marching on. So come to Sonny's in Old City for a revolutionary take on the classic. And try the cheesesteak that Alan Richmond of GQ magazine named the best in Philadelphia. And declare your inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of cheesiness. Sonny's Famous Steaks, 228 Market.
My friends, this is Joe Krause. You've heard me on Philadelphia radio now for over 20 years, and you know I don't often endorse products or people unless they are real game changers. I want to tell you about Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located in Center City, Philadelphia. And at the end of this short personal endorsement, I want you to consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness. If you are recovering from an injury, if you or a family member has been diagnosed with a disorder that has stopped you in your tracks, or if you're like me, determined to learn about wellness while getting yourself prepared to stay healthy so you can enjoy the blessings of your family. Remember the name of this warm and caring location, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Why should you consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness? Because they are who you expect them to be. Weinerman Pain and Wellness, on the web at WeinermanPainandWellness.com.
Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located at 100 South Broad Street, just south of City Hall. Call Weinerman Pain and Wellness at 215-988-9503. That's 215-988-9503. Call today. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the Philly Labor RX Injured Workers Pharmacy Network, featuring PPC Pharmacy, First Choice Pharmacy, and Precision Scripts, providing injured workers with premium products and services from the point of injury through the entire healing process. The Philly Labor RX Pharmacy Network cares about injured workers.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps demonstrate their commitment to defend the American way of life. Since 1775, we have served our nation as a force in readiness. From combat operations to humanitarian assistance in every corner of the world. No matter where the mission takes us today, or wherever our country needs us tomorrow, we always remember the land we call home. As Marines, we take a stand for each other, for our nation, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
All right, and we are back. I hope you were listening because we were talking with Governor Ed Rendell, and you know Governor Rendell. He's very frank. You may know you don't agree with him, but he'll tell you anyway. And it's really one of the topics that I want to talk to him about, because when we move forward as a society, it's because we agree to move forward, and yet not giving up our own opinions, not giving up our differences, but working together. Here's a quote. Philadelphia's renaissance, which the New York Times called the most stunning turnaround in recent urban history, is largely attributed to Ed Rendell's determination, inspiration, and energy. One of the hallmarks of Governor Rendell has been his willingness to work with people across the aisle and on different sides to get things done. And yet nobody would say that he minces words or he speaks with forked tongue. He's very clear. You may have heard him, you may disagree with him, and yet many of you vote for him because he is clear, he is honest. And so my question for the governor is, in today's polarized world, maybe it's because of social media, maybe because we can tweet and do Instagram, it just gets tougher and tougher for people to come together. What about leadership? We need leadership, I think, in order to address all those things you talked about: education, vocational, career. What do you think about the future of our city? What do we need?
Well, you know, David, people always ask me about what are the components that make up a good leader. And there are many. One, a good leader has to know where he or she wants to take his constituency, wants to take his city or his state. If you don't have a vision, don't bother to run for office. If there's not something you really want to get done and you're willing to risk your political hide to try to get it done, don't bother to run for office. So you have to have that vision. Secondly, you've got to be able to communicate well. Ronald Reagan was a success because he stuck to his guns, as you know, and he communicated well. He told the American people, remember how he used to use coins in his speeches? He put things in common parlance that people could understand, using examples about their own budget at home.
Yes.
He was a very good communicator. And third, and that's important because you want to stick to your guns. The third component is to have the courage to, if you believe you're right, to have the courage to just absolutely hang in there and take the abuse and keep pushing until you get it done. But part of trying to get things done that aren't popular in the short run is talking to people and explaining and being open and transparent. I'll give you a best example. You mentioned it right before we went to the break, how when we did all these things for Center City, some people in the neighborhoods agitated and said, you didn't do enough for the neighborhoods, you do everything for Center City. So I addressed that, and I had great help from Council President Street, who later became Mayor Street.
Yes.
And great help from all of City Council. What we would do, what John Street did that was amazing, every time we opened a new hotel, and in my 8 years as mayor, we opened 18 new hotels downtown and 2 new hotels at the airport. Every time we opened a new hotel, John told the developer that I want all the employees there. Even if they're working a night shift and this is 11 in the morning, I want them there. I want them in uniform. And when he spoke, he would always say, now, I have a question for all you associates, all you employees of the hotel. How many of you don't live in Pennsylvania? Maybe 5 out of 300 would raise their hands. How many of you don't live in Philadelphia? Another 10 raise their hands. How many of you live in Center City? Another 5 would raise their hands. How many of you live in the neighborhoods of Philadelphia? And 280 would raise their hands. And the point John Street was making, and he was making it in the clearest way you can, is that center city development creates jobs, but those jobs are by and large held by people who live in the neighborhoods. And you want to do something about housing conditions in the neighborhood, give somebody a $45,000, $50,000 a year job. That'll take care of housing problems. You want to do something with crime? Let's get all of our young people job opportunities as soon as they graduate from high school. Not necessarily where they're going to get rich, but job opportunities. I love the McDonald's commercial that's out right now about the young employee who comes in and he's clearly in high school and he's nervous and he gives this letter to his boss, and his boss gathers all the employees around him and they open it up and he's been accepted to college. McDonald's, believe it or not, has a tuition assistance program, and the tagline is America's best first job. There's nothing wrong with working at a McDonald's. I know a lot of people who were worth $1 million who started off working at McDonald's because you learn things. You learn things in everything you do. My dad once told me, and my dad died when I was 14, which was unlucky, but I was lucky enough to have him for 14 years, and he once told me, if your first job is sweeping a factory floor, you be the best sweeper that factory has ever seen, and you won't be doing it for very long. And that's right. Yes. So a good leader has to communicate and try to convince people of the wisdom of following the path. And sometimes you will, as we did in the center city versus the neighborhoods battle. Sometimes you won't. And if you won't, but you believe it's right, you hang in there, you take the temporary pain and abuse, and you hope things work out well in the end. And if you do the right thing, it generally does. So I have great hope for the city. I love the young people who have come into our government. I mean, David, not just to focus on you, but Derek Green. I mean, there's so many exciting young people. Cindy Bass. I mean, so many young Philadelphians who are taking the mantle of leadership. If we work together and don't get each other's throats, that's why I hate to see the controversy over the Rizzo statute. First of all, if I were to give a message to my liberals, my progressives, and I am a progressive and a liberal, don't demonstrate to tear a statute down. Demonstrate to get a hate crimes bill passed in Harrisburg. Demonstrate to get a job training bill. Demonstrate to things that are going to change people's lives. Whether that Rizzo statute stays up where it is or not isn't going to change one person's life one iota. It may make people feel better, but that's a temporary thing. And again, I want to praise the mayor and council because they're working to find a solution to that problem. Some people think Mayor Rizzo was wonderful. Some people think that he was horrible. Some people think he was racist. Other people, I heard Milton Street say that he wasn't a racist. And I will tell you this, I disagreed with Frank Rizzo about everything. I was the first DA to put a police brutality unit into the office, and he hated that. And yet I saw Frank Rizzo do individual acts of kindness to African-American citizens who he met for the first time and who told him a sad, difficult story. He would go out of his way to help. So did he do things that were racially charged and do things that had unfortunate consequences for African-Americans? Sure he did. And does that make someone a racist? It's certainly a mark on the scale that says he was, but then I've seen him do some things that says he wasn't. But I hope we find a resolution to that satisfies. It's never going to satisfy both sides 100%, but satisfies both sides 60 or 70%, so we can get on to more important stuff. Statues are not important in the scheme of things. We have limited energy. Let's use that energy for things that matter.
Oh, that's perfect. And so what I'm just going to say to the listeners is that's Governor Ed Rendell. At the end of the day, he's talking about vision, communication, and courage, because we do have to come together. I mean, it's a hallmark of democracy that we can disagree and not be thrown in prison or any bad thing, but the magic happens when we agree, when we can work together to get things done for the public good. And with that, I'm going to thank Governor Ed Rendell for sharing his time. He's on the way to the baseball game.
Thank you, David. I want to say one last thing.
Yes.
Your closing made me remember when Donald Trump fired Jim Comey, the original reason that the Attorney General said for firing him was because he was unfair to Hillary Clinton in the way he handled the Hillary Clinton investigation. And I saw Stephen Colbert the next night on TV. He said, I must not have hearing it right. I thought I heard these people say, lock her up. They were really saying, be fair to Hillary. Be fair to Hillary. So, but you're right. We've got to agree to disagree sometimes and just move on. And all the conservatives out there are not bad people. If you wear a Nazi shirt or a Nazi armband or a Nazi fly a Nazi flag, you're a bad, evil person. Do you understand what the Nazis did? They killed 6 million people just because of their religion, and they killed them in gas chambers. Mm. A lot of our young people don't remember that, or they never lived through it. It's horrible. Do you know, young white citizens, do you know what African Americans had to struggle through? Not back at the time of slavery, in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. I mean, when Jackie Robinson first came to play for the Brooklyn Dodgers, he couldn't stay in the same hotels in Philadelphia as the rest of his team.
Mm. That's a good segue, Governor, because our next guests are going to
Absolutely.
talk
I'll get
about
out of here.
Miss Black America, and for the same reason, Governor, African-American women could not enter, could not participate. They could not be Miss America. And so right after this short commercial break, we'll be back with Aleta Anderson, Summer Jordan, and Miss Black America.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB.
My friends, this is Joe Krause. You've heard me on Philadelphia radio now for over 20 years, and you know I don't often endorse products or people unless they are real game changers. I want to tell you about Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located in Center City, Philadelphia. And at the end of this short personal endorsement, I want you to consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness. If you are recovering from an injury, if you or a family member has been diagnosed with a disorder that has stopped you in your tracks, or if you're like me, determined to learn about wellness while getting yourself prepared to stay healthy so you can enjoy the blessings of your family. Remember the name of this warm and caring location, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Why should you consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness? Because they are who you expect them to be. Weinerman Pain and Wellness on the web at WeinermanPainandWellness.com.
Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located at 100 South Broad Street, just south of City Hall. Call Weinerman Pain and Wellness at 215-988-9503. That's 215-988-9503. Call today. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the Philly Labor RX Injured Workers Pharmacy Network, featuring PPC Pharmacy, First Choice Pharmacy, and Precision Scripts, providing injured workers with premium products and services from the point of injury through the entire healing process. The Philly Labor RX Pharmacy Network cares about injured workers.
At any given moment, somewhere in America, a baby is taking a first step, a developmental milestone. But for too many parents, a baby's first steps aren't just a milestone. They're a miracle. These are the parents of babies who were born prematurely or with birth defects. It's a crisis affecting more than 500,000 babies in the United States each year. You can help them by joining volunteers like you who walk in March for Babies. The money you raise funds research and local programs that help babies overcome the challenges of premature birth and birth defects. Together, our steps make stronger, healthier babies a reality for thousands of families. Sign up today at marchforbabies.org to take the steps that help make milestones and even miracles possible. Who will you march for?
All right, and we are back. Listen, I hope you were with us when we spoke to Governor Ed Rendell. Leadership. We need leadership so that we can find a common pathway to improving our community and stick with the most important issues that we have to deal with: jobs, education, and the opportunity to live a good, full life in our communities. Those are the things that we should be focusing on and working together. Now, we have a lot of challenges, and as the governor said, one of our challenges has been in this nation of ours to get along with each other. And it wouldn't seem like such a big problem that others who may be a different race, ethnicity, religion, or persuasion have simply the same rights and opportunities to be successful on the merits. And yet that is one of the sad notes to our history. And with that, I'd like to introduce our guest, who is Aleta Anderson, the executive producer of Miss Black America. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Councilman O. Thank you for welcoming me. And we have Summer Jordan, one of our candidates, here today as well, who is from Philadelphia. I'm very excited about our programming this week. I'm excited about you and your participation and your championing of the Miss Black America pageant programming, as well as all faces from all places around Philadelphia. So thank you for that. Looking forward to you attending and to citywide having attendance of Miss Black America events starting on Thursday.
Yes, this Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So hey, just a couple of days.
This Thursday, August 24th, at the African American Museum, we have a press conference, brunch, and panel discussion. And we have an Awakening the Giant series, and we're going to be discussing throughout the pageant programming financial literacy, financial coverage, financial security, financial confidence.
What time does that start?
That starts at 10 a.m. at the African American Museum.
701 Arch Street, right here in Philadelphia.
Absolutely, 701 Arch Street. And then on Friday, to continue the conversation at the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, the entrance over on 6th Street, we have our first ever Sisterhood pitch-off, and that's going to be exciting. The contestants will be pitching. It's kind of a Shark Tank-ish event, and our little misses will pitch.
Oh,
and
oh my goodness, the little misses.
They will indeed, and we've extended it to other Philadelphia youth. So we are encouraging entrepreneurship, and to circle back to leadership, which is very important.
Yes.
We're providing programming, and it's year-round, that empowers the youth, young women, and communities, and it invites engagement by a variety of organizations around the country, and around the state, around the city. And in fact, we're approaching our 50th anniversary, and we have expanded the programming to a global sisterhood.
Oh, okay.
So we have a lot of firsts this year. We have our first ever representative of Ghana this year.
Wow.
So young women that are living in the United States, but they're from Africa, they're from Dominican Republic, they're from Puerto Rico, they're from other places, but they live in America, and they are Miss Black Americas as well. So they're welcome to the Miss Black America stage. We're excited about that. And finally, on Saturday, August 26th, we will find out who is our 49th Miss Black America. The pageant is very exciting, and it will take place at the Venice Island Performing Arts Center in the Amphitheater in Manayunk. And tickets are available at MissBlackAmerica2017.eventbrite.com.
MISS.
MISS.
Yes.
MISS, Miss Black America 2017.eventbrite.com. So the Miss Black America has lots of new twists, and we're definitely adapting to new resources and tools, but the history is also very important. And the pageant was founded in Philadelphia back in 1968. Yes. It was founded by my father, so that makes it a family business. And I know you were asking earlier how long I've been a part of the pageant. I'm the executive producer now, but in those days when there were mail rooms, I started in the mail room literally, and I would take the mail to a post office on Shelton Avenue, and that post office doesn't exist anymore. And now we have email and we have some other resources. But I started there, and I know as a result, everything about the Miss Black America pageant programming, and it's very programmatic, and it was founded because some have heard the story. Two little girls asked their father. They said when they grew up, they wanted to be Miss America, and that wasn't a possibility back in 1967 and 1968. And as a result, my father conceived and executed and implemented the Miss Black America pageant programming, providing a stage for opportunity, a stage on which young women could use their voice and express themselves, express their talent, and also feel great in their own skin. You know, it wasn't the only challenge wasn't the problem of not being able to take advantage of other platforms like Miss America platforms, but people not having very low self-esteem.
Yes.
And not, considering, not loving themselves, which means you don't love your family, you don't love your history, you don't understand your culture. So, interfering with all of these downfalls and these challenges, and it's still relevant today.
It is, and sadly so. By the way, I went to an all African American elementary school, and I remember when the phrase was coined, "Black is beautiful."
Oh, yeah.
And it just speaks to the fact that there had to be a phrase, there had to be a statement to assure and reinforce in the minds of people, and especially young people, that black is beautiful. And so today, still, there are people who don't have the self-esteem simply because of the way they look.
Absolutely, because of the way they look, because of their and not just among Black Americans, African Americans, and those that live around the globe, because of their features, because of their hair texture, because of their dialects, as compared to what they see in mainstream media.
And that's exactly my point. I say sadly because they're beautiful, but yet they don't see that in themselves the way other people see it, because they're focusing on something which has been given to them through our environment. And so the Miss Black America pageant really tried to address that by showcasing that these women were talented, intelligent, that they were able to really demonstrate their abilities the same as anyone else.
Absolutely, and bringing attention to the wide range and diverse features and skin tones and colors, and bringing down some of those barriers among ourselves between light skin and dark skin, and what was called good hair and bad hair. I remember bringing my father, who founded the Miss Black America pageant, to school for show and tell, and him in second grade at Pastorius Elementary School, and he was talking about healthy hair being good hair, you know what I mean, and talking about appreciating everything that defines you, and loving the skin you're in, and having that beauty from within and exuding it. And that is even part of the consideration when the contestants are measured in swimsuits. Not just beauty of face and figure, but the confidence and the glow that you exude when you present yourself and feel great about yourself. I mean, what is more sexy than that? That is what sexy is, when you really have that confidence and believe in yourself. So and that opens doors and definitely is empowering in rooms.
Okay, well, listen, we have a great example of a young lady sitting right here, and her name is Summer Jordan. She's back from the UK, where she recorded a single.
Yes, I just got back from London, where I recorded my single called Peace. My production team was Timeless Money ENT, and it features Lawrence on the acoustic guitar. You can find my song Peace for free on SoundCloud at SOMER, Summer Jordan. And I'm also a part of the pageant because of my sponsors, the Advancing Families Foundation. Okay,
and so you have not won a pageant. You're actually a contestant in the pageant. And why is that important to you?
So this is actually my first pageant ever, so I'm a bit nervous, but so far what I've been exposed to is just a positive image that they try to exude about minority women in the city, and I just love the positivity. I just graduated from college with a degree in entrepreneurship, so once I found out that they were doing entrepreneurial things for young women, I was like, awesome, this is my platform, this is what I love to do. I love mentoring, I love entrepreneurship, starting my own business. I'm actually in the process of converting my house into a shelter for young women to mentor them through faith, art, and entrepreneurship. So I'll be training young homeless women how to become self-sustaining through entrepreneurship and what they're gifted at naturally. Because I myself was homeless when I was 17. So in the span of 5 years, I literally went from being homeless to a homeowner, unfortunately, after losing my mom to a 10-year breast cancer battle.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. So the house will be named in her honor. But I'll also be turning it into, a good cause for my mission and something that I've overcome personally in life.
Right. And now you just graduated from Eastern University?
Yes. You will see my face probably in regional rail and on the I-95 billboards. I'm a part of the Courage to Create campaign that Eastern is hosting. You can find my story on Eastern's website.
Okay, well, certainly good luck to you, and Aleta, just a wonderful example of the kind of women that are going to be involved in this pageant.
One of the many young women and one of the many fascinating stories as a part of the Miss Black America program. Coincidentally, this year, even though we have contestants coming from around the country, our contestant that's representing Los Angeles is actually from Philadelphia, Patience Carter, she's a student at NYU,
yes,
and she's representing Richmond County Chamber of Black and Minority Chamber of Commerce. She's from Philadelphia, so we're excited. Come on out and applaud all of the young women on August 24th, 25th, and 26th. Get your tickets at missblackamerica.eventbrite.com. And remember, Oprah Winfrey was a contestant. Tony Braxton was a contestant.
Very distinguished contestants.
Jackson 5 had the platform here. So it's an opportunity pageant for the community as well as for the contestants.
All right. Thank you very much. Listen, I'm going. I'm excited. It'll be just a very positive experience. And listen, a part of our American history. So please, this weekend, get involved. Miss Black America. Now, that's it for us. And so tune in next week, Tuesday, 2 to 3, here on WWDB.
You've been listening to In the Know with David O. on 860 AM WWDB. Tune in again next Tuesday at 2 p.m. for more informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio with Philadelphia Councilman David O.